without further ado, I would like to introduce First Lieutenant Sam Albahari, United States Army.
Good morning. President Urschel, Dean Osborne, distinguished guests, family, and friends. I'd first like to thank all of you for coming out today to pay tribute to a member of the Roger Williams community and a close friend to many of us here. I know it means a lot to Joe's family and to those in uniform here to recognize that despite being gone, Joe will never be forgotten. General George S. Patton once said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died here today. Rather, we thank God that such men lived." I found this quote to be fitting. We need to thank God for giving Joe the strength to step up to a calling that less than 2% of this nation hears. He joined the strongest military force in the world in a time of war, and men of that caliber are few and far between. Joe would have agreed with General Patton, also not wanting us to mourn his death, but to be thankful that he lived such a great life, as short as it may have been. He would not want us to feel upset, to feel any pain, but he would want us to know that he is in a better place. And for those reasons, Joe, in my eyes, will always be called a hero. While serving in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, 2nd Lieutenant Joseph Fortin, Comanche Troop, 1st Squadron, 7th Cavalry, 1st Cavalry Division, was killed due to wounds received from an improvised explosive device attack against his vehicle in Mahal, Iraq on August 23rd, 2009. There are no words to describe any of the pain that runs through us for those who are close to him. The pain of knowing he left behind a family that loved him, a wife who was in love with him, and friends who would gladly trade places with him that fateful day. But despite not being there physically with any of us, Joe is with us in our hearts and minds every day and everywhere we go. He's watching over us as our guardian angel, protecting his friends and his brothers in uniform, watching over his wife, Nicole, and his family members who he loved so much. The grieving process has been tough on all of us. The anger of losing a friend and the pain of losing someone you loved are emotions I wish nobody had to feel. And even though our hearts will never be fully healed, the memories of Joe are what mend our wounds. For me, there were countless memories with him. It was the mornings of PT here at Roger Williams, the field exercise at the officer basic course where him and I were on the verge of sharing a sleeping bag because it was so cold. Didn't happen, Miguel, don't worry. Or just the everyday interactions him and I had from the time we met until he departed for Iraq. You have to remember those times, because that's what he would have wanted. He wouldn't want us crying, feeling sorry for ourselves. Rather, he'd want us to think of the times where he made you smile. Joe's teacher talked about his smile. He even named it the Joey Fortin smile, which could light up a room and smile everybody knew. The smile that showed exactly what kind of person Joe really was. An energetic, caring, and thoughtful human being who put his own needs behind those of his friends and family, and even behind those of people he barely knew or didn't know at all. In his autobiography, General Schwarzkopf wrote, "It doesn't take a hero to order men into battle. It takes a hero to be one of those men who goes into battle." And Joe did just that. He went into battle without fears and indecision. He was a hero. And Joe's family members spoke about that, about how he always wanted to be one. Whether it was with his cousin Danelle while they were playing Batman and Robin in the laundry room, or if it was on the battlefield in Iraq, Joe had that quality inside of him. He never backed down from a challenge or a task. And to say he always embodied the warrior ethos of always placing the mission first, never accepting defeat, never quitting, and never leaving a fallen comrade just wouldn't be enough. In keeping true to that ethos, Joe didn't leave any fallen comrades that day. He was the only person to die, allowing his fellow soldiers in that vehicle to live and to continue to fight and eventually go home to their families and tell of the heroic acts of their lieutenant that day. And that's how Joe would have wanted it. He saved the lives of 4 American soldiers, and he will always be a hero in my eyes, and for everybody who knew him, for knowingly and willingly placing himself between all of you and the evil men who mean our country ill. As Comanche Troops Fire Support Officer, he did some amazing things. His troop commander spoke about how he saved and cleaned and he nearly doubled the amount of clean drinking water for over 800,000 people. He oversaw projects to ensure the people of Iraq had electricity, whether it was for the first time or a couple more hours per day. He ensured that it was there. He provided books, other supplies so that young Iraqi boys and girls could get an education for their first time. And most importantly, he provided safety and security, something these people had rarely, if ever, seen before. Joe wasn't about doing anything for himself, but doing deeds for others, simply because that's what made him happy. Seeing others get the joy from something he did or something he helped out with was what made him the most content. The loss of a good friend like Joe makes you do a lot of thinking. It makes you realize you have no idea what could happen tomorrow, next week, or next month. And that you should cherish every day you have with the people you love. You should never hesitate to follow any of your dreams, and that you should live every day you have to the fullest. To never hold back, and to never hold back. Joe never held back from any task that he had. He strived to be the best field artillery officer he was. He strived to be the best husband that he could be, and to be the best friend that any of us could have ever had. He was a great friend, soldier, and human being. Joe died so that we may live. And as soldiers, we must continue to fight, for we have an obligation to him. We have an obligation to finish the task at hand so that he did not die in vain. And so help me God, I will ensure he did not die in vain. I ask that you take the time every day to remember Joe. Not just on Veterans Day, not just on the 23rd of every month, but take the time to remember Joe for who he was. A great friend and a hero for giving his life so that we all may live. So remember a hero who cared more for his friends and family than for his own well-being. And that you remember the good times you had with him, because that's what he would have wanted. And lastly, I ask you keep him close to your hearts, because that's where he will forever be. Joe will always be a son to his mother and father, a husband to his wife Nicole, and an uncle to his newest family member, Lincoln Joseph McKinney, and a brother to all those he served with. Thank you all for coming out here to remember Joe for who he was, a great friend, soldier, and an American hero who's gone, but will never be forgotten. Thank you.